let's be honest for a second. There is a very specific feeling that I think defines modern adulthood. Is that Sisyphus sensation?
Oh, yeah.
You know the one, right?
Yeah.
You are pushing this massive boulder up a hill. Your calves are burning, you're sweating, and you have this terrifying realization that if you stop for even 5 minutes,
It all rolls back down. The grind. It's the water we're all swimming in. The assumption that success is basically just a contest of who can endure the most pain.
exactly. If you aren't burned out, you aren't trying hard enough. But today, we're looking at a stack of sources that basically looks at that whole narrative and just says, you're doing it wrong.
Completely wrong.
We're deep diving into some ancient texts, Hebrew wisdom literature like Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, the Torah, some prophetic writings. And what's wild is they don't just offer, spiritual platitudes. They outline a specific economic system.
It really is a system, a divine economy that operates on completely different mechanics than the marketplace we're used to. It talks about things like provision, favor, and inheritance not as like random luck.
But as results of specific laws. And that's our mission today. We want to take apart these biblical definitions of favor. We want to look under the hood of what the text called the blessing versus painful toil. Because according to these sources, there is a way to work where the output is just completely disproportionate to the input. And frankly, for anyone listening who is tired of the hustle, that sounds almost too good to be true.
It does sound like magic, but the text presents it as mechanics. It's about leverage.
So let's start with the anchor of this whole concept. We have Proverbs 10.22. I've read this in a few translations, and the nuance is crucial. The NIV says, the blessing of the Lord brings wealth without painful toil for it.
And the New Living Translation says, the blessing of the Lord makes a person rich, and he adds no sorrow with it.
Okay, stop there. No sorry.
Yeah.
Because to me, work is often synonymous with stress
Yeah,
or anxiety, late nights, missed family dinners.
of course.
Is this verse suggesting we just sit on the couch and wait for a direct deposit? Because that feels, well, unrealistic.
That's the most common misconception. The Hebrew word used for toil there implies specifically painful labor or labor filled with grief and worry.
Oh, okay.
It's not saying you don't exert effort. It's distinguishing between two sources of wealth. There is wealth you generate by, grinding your own bones into dust.
Yeah.
That comes with sorrow. And then there is wealth that arrives because you are operating under the blessing.
So it's a quality of life metric. Two people can have the same bank balance, but one has ulcers and a broken marriage, and the other has peace.
Precisely. And the sources go even darker than that. If you look at Ecclesiastes 2.26, it sets up this terrifying contrast. It says that to the person who is good in God's sight, he gives wisdom and joy. But to the sinner, someone operating outside this divine alignment, God gives travail.
Travail, that's a heavy word.
It means struggle. But listen to the task assigned to this person. To gather and to heap up. Their entire existence is just accumulation. They are working hard.
They're stacking cash.
Stacking cash. But the verse says they are doing all that gathering that he may give to him that is good before God.
Wait a minute. That sounds incredibly harsh. You're saying the person busting their back, doing everything right by modern capitalist standards, hustling, saving, hoarding, is actually just a glorified savings account for someone else?
In this specific economy, yes. It's what you might call the law of transfer. Proverbs 13.22 backs this up. A sinner's wealth is stored up for the righteous.
Wow.
The mechanism here is flow versus stagnation. The sinner in this context is hoarding, blocking the flow. The righteous is aligned with the covenant, so the resources eventually gravitate toward them.
That is a massive paradigm shift. It turns the whole self-made man myth into a tragedy. But I want to get practical. You mentioned this isn't about laziness. If we aren't toiling in sorrow, what are we doing?
We are working, but with a multiplier. A great case study in the source stack is Genesis 26.1/2. We have the figure of Isaac. Now, context is everything here.
Okay.
He is living in a land that is experiencing a famine.
So ecologically, the ground is dead. It's a drought. Nothing should grow.
Right. Economic depression, Dust Bowl conditions. Logic says you hoard your seed because if you plant it, it'll just die. But the text says Isaac sowed in that land in the middle of the famine and received in the same year 100-fold, and the Lord blessed him.
100-fold return
Eh.
in a famine.
That's the mechanic. That is the blessing overriding the natural economy. If Isaac was operating on natural laws, he would have zero yield. Maybe less than zero.
He would have lost his seed.
Exactly. But he was operating on covenant laws. He did the work. He had to physically go out and sow, which was a huge risk, but the result was disconnected from the environment and connected to the favor.
I see. So the work acts as a container, but the blessing is what fills it.
That's a great way to put it. You provide the vessel, your job, your project, your investment, but the volume of the return is determined by the favor resting on it, not just the hours you log.
Which leads us to where this supply actually comes from. We have to talk about the windows metaphor in Malachi. Even if you haven't been in a church in 20 years, you probably heard, "Open the windows of heaven."
Malachi 3.2. It's fascinating because it's phrased as a challenge. The text invites the listener to put me to the test. It's basically a dare.
A dare from God.
Pretty much. The promise is that if you align with the system, specifically regarding tithing in this context, God will open the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing so great you won't have enough room to take it in.
I love the logistics of that. Not enough room. It implies an inventory management problem. You're overwhelmed by the supply.
And notice the source. Windows of heaven. In Deuteronomy 28, this is described as his good treasury. And the primary function of this treasury in an agrarian society was to give rain in its season.
Rain is life. No rain, no crops, no money. It's that simple.
But there's a second part to the Malachi promise that I think is even more important for a modern listener. It's not just about offense getting more income, it's about defense. Malachi 3.01 says, "I will rebuke the devourer for your sakes."
The devourer. That sounds like a sci-fi villain.
In the agricultural context, it meant locusts, blight, things that eat your profit before you can even harvest it. But think about your own life.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
How often do you get a bonus and the next day your transmission blows up? Or you finally save $1,000 and then you have a medical emergency?
All the time. It feels like there's a hole in the bucket. You put water in and it leaks out just as fast.
That is the devourer. It's entropy. It's wasted potential. The promise here is protection of your assets. The text says, "He will guard your crops, and the grapes in the field will not fall before they are ripe."
That image of the grape falling, that's lost investment, isn't it? It almost made it to harvest, but it dropped too soon.
Exactly. It's wasted effort. The blessing acts as a shield or a preservative. It ensures that what you earn, you actually get to keep and enjoy. It stops the leak in the bucket.
But I have to play the skeptic here for a second. This sounds a little like a vending machine. I put in a tithe coin and I get a protection snack. Is it really that transactional?
It's not transactional like a vending machine. It's covenantal, like a contract. There's a difference.
Explain that.
A covenant is a relational agreement with binding terms on both sides. Deuteronomy 28 is very clear. It starts with a giant IF. It says, "All these blessings will overtake you if you diligently obey the voice of the Lord."
So it's an alignment issue. You can't ignore the user manual and then be mad when the machine breaks.
Right. Job 36.11 puts it so simply. "If they obey and serve him, they shall spend their days in prosperity and their years in pleasantness and joy." It's cause and effect, but the cause is relationship and obedience, not just buying a blessing.
Okay, so let's say someone is listening to this and they're thinking, fine, I want this flow, I want the windows open. But the text suggests the scope of this isn't just about my checking account right now. It's bigger.
Much bigger. The modern mindset is incredibly short-term. We think about the weekend or, maybe retirement if we're being responsible.
Right.
The biblical mindset is generational. It thinks in centuries.
We see this in Proverbs 13.22 again. A good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children.
Grandchildren. That is the target demographic for your work today. If you are only working for your own survival, you are, according to these texts, you're under-aiming.
And this ties back to Abraham, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The original blueprint.
Genesis 17, absolutely. God changes Abram's name to Abraham, which means father of a multitude. He establishes a covenant that is everlasting from generation to generation. The favor was never meant to stop with one person.
It's hereditary.
It's hereditary. Hereditary favor. That's a wild concept.
That my behavior today could unlock doors for my great-grandson.
Or lock them. But the promise is positive. Look at Psalm 37.25. This is King David. Looking back over his life, he says, "I was young and now I am old, yet I have never seen the righteous forsaken or their children begging bread."
Never. That's a strong absolute.
It's just a safety net that extends beyond the individual. And Isaiah 65.23 reinforces it. "They will not work in vain, and their children will not be doomed to misfortune." Imagine the psychological relief of believing that.
Yeah.
Knowing that your work isn't just paying bills, it's constructing a floor that your descendants will stand on.
It reframes the grind entirely. You aren't Sisyphus pushing a rock for no reason. You're laying a foundation.
Yeah.
But I want to pivot to the last piece of this puzzle. Because you can have generational wealth, you can have a 100-fold return, and still be miserable.
Oh, absolutely. We see rich people who are wretched all the time.
So what's missing?
That's because wealth is only one slice of the pie. The biblical definition of blessing is holistic. It's a total life package.
I was struck by the list of protections in Job 5. It's exhaustive. It mentions famine and war, sure, but then it gets into reputation. It says you will be hidden from the scourge of the tongue.
Think about how valuable that is in our cancel culture. The scourge of the tongue is slander, it's gossip, character assassination.
Wow.
The text promises a layer of insulation where people's bad words about you they don't land. They don't destroy you.
And then it gets almost mystical. It says you'll be in league with the stones of the field, and the beasts of the field shall be at peace with thee. I don't know many people worried about field beasts, but I assume that means your environment stops fighting you.
It implies harmony. You aren't constantly stubbing your toe on life. Things work with you. But the pinnacle of this, the absolute peak of the blessing, isn't money or safety. It's status and peace.
The head and not the tail.
That's Deuteronomy 28. You shall be above only and not beneath. It describes the position of influence. You shall lend to many nations, but you shall not borrow. It's the difference between being the one asking for help and the one with the capacity to give it.
But my favorite image of this piece has to be Psalm 23. You prepare a feast for me in the presence of my enemies.
It's the ultimate power move.
It really is. You have enemies surrounding you.
Right.
People or problems that want to take you out, and you aren't fighting. You aren't hiding in a bunker. You're sitting at a table eating a 5-course meal.
It implies that the protection is so absolute, the favor is so thick, that the presence of danger doesn't even ruin your appetite. That is a level of psychological peace that money cannot buy.
And Proverbs 16.7 takes it a step further. When a man's ways please the Lord, he maketh even his enemies to be at peace with him.
That's the mechanic of neutralization. The solution isn't always to defeat the enemy or destroy the competition. The blessing can actually change the heart of the opponent.
They just stop.
They just stop fighting you. The friction disappears.
So when we zoom out and look at this deep dive as a whole, we aren't just talking about getting rich.
No, not at all. We are talking about a mechanism, the blessing, that is protective, productive, and peaceful. And it rests on a person because of covenant alignment. As Psalm 84.11 says, no good thing will he withhold from them that walk uprightly.
But I have to ask the final why. Why does this system exist? Why would the divine go to such lengths to give someone surplus, protection, and peace? Is it just so we can live in mansions and feel good about ourselves?
If you stop there, you miss the whole point. The surplus has a function. 2 Corinthians 9.8, and the Amplified translation just nails this, says God provides this abundance so that you may have sufficiency in all things, meaning your needs are met, B-U-T.
There's a but.
There's a but. It continues that you may abound to every good work.
So the income is for the outcome.
Exactly. You are funded to be a distributor. The reason the windows of heaven open for you is so that you can open your hand to everyone else. If you become a dam, the water becomes stagnant. If you are a river, the water keeps fresh.
That brings us right back to where we started. The boulder, the hill, the burnout.
The world tells you to push the boulder so you can prove your worth. These texts tell you that your worth is settled, and the blessing is the wind at your back that helps move the weight.
So here's the provocative thought I want to leave you with. We talked about grandchildren. We talked about inheritance. If these sources are true, if a righteous person leaves an inheritance to their children's children, how does that change your email inbox tomorrow morning?
Are you working just to survive Friday? Or are you building a legacy for a generation you haven't even met yet?
It changes the timeline, and it definitely changes the purpose. Thanks for diving deep with us.
See you next time.